We have exciting news to share with you. My name is Eli Turen. I'm speaking to you from Chicago. Tonight is Chof Ches Nisan, the 28th of Nisan, Tafshin Pei Dalet. 33 years ago tonight, the Lubavitcher Rebbe MH Moshiach Shlita spoke in 770. He delivered a shocking talk. Basically, he spoke very intensely, and he said that everything that he has done until now to bring the redemption hasn't worked, apparently. And therefore, the only thing that he can do is he's giving it over to us. He, in his words, translated, I'm giving it over to you, every single one of you. Do everything that you possibly can to bring about the redemption. And was very, very intense, very, very shocking. And that is what put everyone into a state of being activists and doing everything we possibly can to bring about Moshiach, to bring the final redemption. Now, this came after many years of him speaking about Moshiach, demanding Moshiach, explaining the concept of Moshiach and Geula redemption, primarily throughout the Tafshin Mems, the 1980s. He would speak about it so often and in such great detail, explaining the necessity for everyone to not only ask for Moshiach and not only pray for Moshiach, but to actually outright demand of Hashem Moshiach. There was a song which became a slogan that was made up, and the Rebbe MH embraced it, and oftentimes even began singing it in English himself. And that, of course, is the famous "We want Moshiach now." And he explained every one of those words, and that the word now means absolutely, literally now, and what the word want means many, many talks throughout, as I said, the 1980s. At the time, unfortunately, there was some opposition, and wouldn't you guess, within the Orthodox Jewish world. They didn't know better, they didn't understand, and they were opposing it. Some were, to some degree, unfortunately. And the Rebbe MH spoke about this with great pain many times and explained every aspect and brought the sources and elaborated. 1988, one example, and you could see this on video. Yud Beis Tammuz, Tafshin Mem Dalet, screaming out of the depths of his heart that you have to turn over a world and do whatever you possibly can and bring about the redemption right now. Many, many such talks. Now, our sages teach us in the Talmud that a disciple can only truly understand his Rebbe, his teacher, after 40 years. Here we are, some 40 years since the mid-Tafshin Mems, 1980s. And finally, Baruch Hashem, everybody's on board. And I want to share with you in something which is incredible. I am so excited. Baruch Hashem, Shechionu, we got to this point. This year, due to the situation of what's going on in the entire world, especially in the Holy Land of Eretz Yisrael, G'dolei Yisrael, amongst them, some of the greatest leading Litvische G'dolei Yisrael, Jewish leaders, put out a letter. And this is to the Lakewood community. And they write over here the necessity to not only pray for Mashiach, but to actually scream for Mashiach, and not to suffice with praying silently and using the text that's in the Siddur, but we have to get together and we have to actually scream out to Hashem. And they bring the verse from the prophet Hosea, Uvikshu es Hashem Elokeim ve'es David Malkam, that the Jewish people are to ask of Hashem and of David their king. And Rashi bringing down the words of Chazal, of our sages, that the Jewish people will not be shown the sign of redemption until they are mevakesh. Three things. Malchus Shamayim, the sovereignty of heaven. Malchus Beis David, the sovereignty of the household of David. Ubeis HaMikdash. In 1985, Zayin Cheshvan Tovshin Memvav, the Rebbe MH Moshiach spoke at length about publicizing, and he said, don't say it in his name, because some people will automatically oppose it. Just bring the original sources. In that case, it was the Chida and the Radak. And the words of the Radak, says the Rebbe MH Moshiach, are shocking. And it's so imperative to demand these three things and to demand the coming of Moshiach. And here we are, some 40 years later, and this is what many Gedolei Yisrael, Litvish amongst them, are precisely telling their communities to do. It's just amazing. It's so exciting. And here in Chicago, I read to you. This is from Hagoin Reb David Zucker Shlita, the Rosh Kollel of Zichron Shneir, the Lakewood Kollel branch here in Chicago. Due to the current matzav in Eretz Yisrael and the many tzaras throughout Klal Yisrael, many Mekaymes of Bnei Torah have been gathering to say the Gimel Bakoshois of Malchus Shamayim, Malchus Beis David, Uvinyan Beis HaMikdash, as mentioned in Chazal. We will, Be'ezer Hashem, be gathering together again this Sunday evening, Chaf Ches Nisan. Did you get that? Rabbi Zucker. Chaf Ches Nisan. At the Chicago Community Kollel, to daven together after the 9:45 Ma'ariv, signed David Zucker. Chaf Ches Nisan. Every Lubavitcher trembles when he hears that date. 33 years ago. Vosir Kent. And Lubavitch has been working and trying and demanding and pleading and begging and arguing within and without. Let's do. What does the Rebbe MH Moshiach want of us? Unbelievable. So tonight, here in Chicago, there was a beautiful gathering. And who was the speaker? Divrei Hisayrus Harav Hagoin Reb Shmuel Yeshaya Keller Shlita, the Rosh Yeshiva of Telz in Chicago. And what's the topic? Divrei Hisayrus Ubakoshas HaGeula. Do you understand? Moshiach is no longer a Lubavitch concept. It never was. It's a Jewish concept. We've been trying to tell you that all along. Yud Gimel Ikrim. And you have to demand Moshiach. Now, over the years, so much has been done within Lubavitch, but not enough. How can I say not enough? Proof is we're still in Golus. So many books, so many booklets in so many languages. One of the things that the Rebbe MH Moshiach said to learn, and he said the straightest and easiest path to bring about the redemption, a week after he said that Sicha of Chaf Ches Nisan, was he says to learn in Torah the subject matter, the topics, the sugyas of Moshiach and Geula. Torah Shebichsav, Torah Shebal Peh, in the Nevi'im, in Gemara, in Midrashim, in Zoyar, in Chassidus, and especially in the Maimarim and the Lekutei Sichas of the leader of our generation. There's a sefer called Besuras HaGeula, which is select pieces, excerpts of edited sichas that the Rebbe MH Moshiach spoke from the time that he said the famous words, quoting the Yalkut Shimoini, Higia Zman Geulaschem, that the time of your redemption has arrived, at the very end of Tavshin Nun, 1990. And week after week after week, everything that he said about Moshiach, without the whole lengthy explanation, just so to say the punchline, is in this sefer. half of it is Yiddish, half is Hebrew Lashon HaKodesh. Then there's a translation, all of it in Hebrew. Then there's a translation, all of it in English. Then there's a pocket size to make it more convenient, etc. And there's certain individuals, many individuals, that wrote many Sfarim about the topic. And I'm just going to mention a couple, but there are many more. And not only Lubavitch. One of them is Harav HaGoin, Reb Shalom Doiv Ber Volpa Shlita. He wrote many Sfarim on many topics. Amongst that, he wrote Sfarim about Moshiach, such as Yechi HaMelech and Yechi HaMelech HaMoshiach. Another individual, a big chassid, Rabbi Chaim Sasson Shlita, wrote many books. Amongst them, Ato Yadaiti, thick book all about Moshiach. He wrote a sefer called Vikar of Meshiche. Then, someone, Rabbi Avichzar Shlita, he put out little pamphlets for every month. 13 of these, each one a short quote and message of a teaching, of a saying of the Rebbe MH HaMoshiach about Mashiach connected to that day. And then more recently, if you want to learn a little bit more in depth, Derech HaYeshara, exactly 2 sides, 2 pages for every single day of the year on a different topic of Mashiach, quoting different sources, Chazal, Rishonim, Achronim, Sichas of the Rebbe MH HaMoshiach, etc. And then, a person was a bacher at the time, Rabbi Yazagwi Shlita, he took the 2 prakim of the Rambam, the last 2 chapters of Mishnah Torah, Hilchis Melech HaMoshiach, and he brought down all of the biurim, all the explanations of the Rebbe MH HaMoshiach on those 2 chapters. Thus the Sefer Dvar Malchus. Now all of this has been done over the past 33 years, and much more. There's libraries filled with this. And Baruch Hashem, many people are discussing and talking, and it's just amazing. We finally got to that point. No longer do we hear the arguments of how dare you say we want Mashiach now. Baruch Hashem, people don't even remember those statements. Good. No one is going to challenge a Lubavitcher for saying that we have to demand Mashiach. No one's going to tell him, tone it down. No, we're all toning it up. Baruch Hashem, we got to that point. The one thing that's imperative right now, according to the Rebbe MH HaMoshiach, this is what he said, Beis Nisan Tovshin Memches, and then with much greater explanation, Shabbos Parshas Toldos Tovshin Nun Beis. And that is to identify Moshiach himself. That is part of the Uvikshu es Hashem Elokeim ve'eis David Malcolm. Hine ze ba. That's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. The Medrash Rabbah on the pasuk says, Hine ze Melech HaMoshiach ba. Meaning, ze keli van veu. Mare bet boy voimer ze. V'amar bayemahu. Hine Elokeinu ze. You point with your finger. Same thing with Moshiach. Hine ze HaMelech HaMoshiach ba. Who is Moshiach? The Lubavitcher Rebbe Shlita Melech HaMoshiach. Yechi Adonenu, Meirenu v'Rabbeinu, Melech HaMoshiach le'olam voed.